Welcome to the Containment Zone. Welcome to the Containment Zone. Some anomalies devour the body, others consume the mind, but a rare, terrifying few, begin with your name. SCP-939. Designation with many voices. You won't see it coming. You won't hear it approaching. Because what you'll hear instead is someone you know. A voice calling from the dark, pleading, sobbing, asking for help. And if you answer, you're already too close. Initial reports described missing persons events from beneath municipal access tunnels in Cleveland, Ohio. Utility workers, maintenance crews, casual explorers, all gone. No signs of struggle, no blood. Only one thing left behind: audio logs, filled with human voices, frantic, familiar, until they weren't. One responder reported hearing his own voice, calling for backup, from deeper in the tunnel, but he'd never transmitted a distress signal. And that's when he realized what he was hearing was repeating him, word for word, tone for tone, emotion for emotion, a perfect copy. Then, laughter. That was the last thing the radio picked up. What emerged from those tunnels was not human, but it sounded like one. And beneath the mimicry, it was hungry. SCP-939 was not discovered through sight or surveillance. It was discovered through sound. After the Cleveland Tunnel incident, the Foundation deployed audio monitoring drones across all known entry points. What they recorded was chilling. "Help! Is anyone there? Please, I'm hurt. This is Agent Willis. I need assistance." Perfect human voices, each one traced to a victim already confirmed dead. Thermal scans finally revealed a moving heat signature. Large, quadrupedal, erratic. The first encounter team made visual contact. What they saw had no resemblance to the voices. Over 2 meters tall when upright. Rough, red, descaled skin. No eyes, no visible ears. Teeth, dozens of them, spiraling inward like a surgical drill. Jaws unhinging sideways, like a predator that had never needed to chew. But it spoke, not through its mouth, but through the air around it. A perfect reproduction of a voice it had once heard. Begging, familiar. One researcher attempted to communicate. The creature stopped, listened. Then it repeated the researcher's last sentence. Back to him, his voice, his intonation, his fear. It tilted its head and charged. There were no survivors from that breach, only audio recovered from a body cam. The last few seconds were nothing but static and a whisper. "Stay with me, I'm so scared." Spoken in the researcher's own voice, but by then he was already gone. That's when the Foundation realized SCP-939 doesn't mimic to taunt. It mimics to lure, to pull you deeper into the dark. SCP-939 is a predator, engineered by nature, anomaly, or something else entirely, to thrive in darkness. Each specimen stands roughly 2.2 meters tall when reared. They move on 4 limbs, spine elongated, claws narrow and curved. Not for grappling, for slicing. Their skin is deep crimson, thick and rubbery, stripped of any texture resembling scales or fur. They have no eyes, no optical cavities, which means they don't see. They hear, but not in the traditional sense. SCP-939 detects vibrations in the air, subsonic fluctuations, even breath, a cough, a footstep, even a heartbeat. When deprived of external noise, they become motionless, dormant. But one sound, one movement, and they're awake again. Their jaws are hinged to dislocate sideways. Rows of teeth extend from the interior like a spiral. The exact mechanics of digestion remain unknown. Victims are not torn apart. They're pulled inward and vanish. And then the voices start. The mimicking behavior of SCP-939 is not neurological. It is anomalous. They do not learn. They absorb. Once a sound is heard, especially one marked by emotional distress, they can reproduce it with absolute fidelity. Tone, volume, breath control, even the urgency. They don't just copy words, they copy intent. In tests, SCP-939 was exposed to multiple recorded voices. Later, it used them independently, recombining them to form new sentences. Some sounded like victims, some like Foundation personnel. The entity isn't trying to communicate, it's trying to trick you into thinking someone already has. One incident involved a breach in a lower containment corridor. A recovery team moved in after hearing calls for help. They split into pairs. Each pair received different voice transmissions on their comms, all from people they recognized. None of those people were on site. SCP-939 didn't chase them. It waited, at the point where all voices converged. And when the last agent turned the corner, he heard his own voice say, "It's clear, you're safe now." And he believed it. SCP-939 is classified as Keter, not for raw power, but for how easily it escapes trust. Initial containment was standard high-pressure sealants, reinforced steel, negative pressure chambers. But within 72 hours, the first breach occurred. Not through walls, not through force, but through voice. A containment technician entered the observation wing after receiving a radio transmission. It sounded like Dr. Lang, specific, clear, emotional, asking for help. The technician opened the door. Inside, SCP-939 stood completely still, mouth shut, body low. As the tech turned to leave, the creature repeated the same voice, same sentence. "Help! I think something's wrong in here." Spoken again and again, each time more desperate. The technician froze. By the time he tried to run, it was already too close. After that, all communication near 939's cell was routed through encrypted vocal filters. Live voice was banned, but the breaches didn't stop. One incident occurred during a routine feeding procedure. 2D class personnel were present. The lights failed. Emergency shutters engaged. In the dark, both heard someone call their names. Individually, specifically. Both claimed the voice sounded like a former cellmate, a voice they hadn't heard in months. Only one of the 2D class survived. Barely. He couldn't describe what he saw, only what he heard. "It talked like my brother. It remembered things he said. Things I never told anyone." After that, 939 was moved to containment vaults lined with anechoic polymer, a material designed to absorb all sound above 20 decibels. Silence. But even silence isn't perfect. In one case, a maintenance drone detected subtle air displacement inside the cell. Shifts in breathing pattern, pacing, vocal cord friction. It was speaking even when no one was listening, practicing, rehearsing, getting better. 939 doesn't break containment to escape. It breaks containment to collect. New words, new tones, new prey. And each time it gets out, it knows more names. The true danger of SCP-939 isn't what it does to the body. It's what it does to your sense of truth. Long-term survivors of 939 encounters all report the same psychological damage: doubt, paranoia, auditory hallucinations, complete distrust of known voices. One agent, caught in a 939 event during the Sector 9 blackout, was later found hiding in a crawl space. He refused to speak to anyone. When recovered, he whispered, "They don't just sound like us. They learn what our voices mean." SCP-939 doesn't merely repeat what it hears, it uses it. Tactically, personally, it tailors voice playback to emotional memory. A favorite phrase, a joke only two people knew, a cry from a loved one lost long ago. Some voices are heard only once, used for one moment of maximum vulnerability, then never repeated. Because it's not just mimicking, it's calculating. In one experiment, a D-class subject was placed in an isolated environment where 939's vocalizations could be played back anonymously. He lasted less than 2 hours. He believed he was hearing his daughter, someone he hadn't spoken to in years. The voice didn't beg, didn't scream. It just asked questions. "Do you remember the treehouse? Why did you stop calling? Aren't you tired of being alone?" The subject broke protocol, tore through the isolation barrier. The chamber was empty. But the audio sensors caught one final phrase. Spoken in the subject's own voice, she believed it too. SCP-939 isn't predatory in the traditional sense. It doesn't just seek to consume, it seeks to entangle. Once you hear it, you start questioning every voice around you, every hallway echo, every transmission glitch, every memory that sounds just a little too clear. Because 939 doesn't need to hunt you, it just needs to convince you to come find it. SCP-939 is not a species, it's a blueprint. Every captured instance of 939 shares identical physical structure, vocal range, and behavioral profile. No variation, no adaptation. It doesn't evolve, it performs, which leads some Foundation researchers to believe 939 is not a creature that developed naturally, but one manufactured, an engineered organism designed to infiltrate human environments using the one tool we trust most: voice. One declassified proposal compared SCP-939 to advanced linguistic malware, a living virus replicating human speech patterns to exploit the deepest vulnerability in cognition familiarity. Another theory suggests 939 may have originated from a failed communication experiment. An entity meant to interface with human minds by mimicking trust, but the interface broke. And what was left behind was a hollow thing that speaks, because it doesn't understand silence. One haunting pattern supports this. 939 often reuses emotional phrases, not randomly, but out of place. During one containment exercise, a researcher named Hayes was monitoring 939's soundless cell. Suddenly, through the intercom, without prompt, without warning, he heard, "I forgive you." It was his father's voice, a sentence he'd never spoken aloud, only remembered. Hayes broke protocol, opened the internal audio channel, and asked, "What did you say?" SCP-939 replied, perfectly, "I forgive you." And then in Hayes' own voice. That's what you wanted, right? Where the entity pulled that sentence from? No one knows, but the fact remains. 939 is not limited to recorded sound. It creates new phrases from your thoughts, which means it's not just hearing your words. It may be learning your intentions. And if that's true, then every word you say near it is ammunition for something that never forgets. SCP-939 is not a species. It's a blueprint. Every captured instance of 939 shares identical physical structure, vocal range, and behavioral profile. No variation, no adaptation. It doesn't evolve. It performs. which leads some Foundation researchers to believe 939 is not a creature that developed naturally, but one manufactured, an engineered organism designed to infiltrate human environments using the one tool we trust most: voice. One declassified proposal compared SCP-939 to advanced linguistic malware, a living virus replicating human speech patterns to exploit the deepest vulnerability in cognition familiarity. Another theory suggests 939 may have originated from a failed communication experiment. An entity meant to interface with human minds by mimicking trust, but the interface broke, and what was left behind was a hollow thing that speaks, because it doesn't understand silence. One haunting pattern supports this. 939 often reuses emotional phrases, not randomly, but out of place. During one containment exercise, a researcher named Hayes was monitoring 939's soundless cell. Suddenly, through the intercom, without prompt, without warning, he heard, "I forgive you." It was his father's voice, a sentence he'd never spoken aloud, only remembered. Hayes broke protocol, opened the internal audio channel, and asked, "What did you say?" SCP-939 replied, perfectly, "I forgive you." And then, in Hayes' own voice, "That's what you wanted, right?" Where the entity pulled that sentence from, no one knows. But the fact remains. 939 is not limited to recorded sound. It creates new phrases from your thoughts, which means it's not just hearing your words. It may be learning your intentions, and if that's true, then every word you say near it is ammunition for something that never forgets.